Welcome to a new take on my GT7 abilities. As y'all know, I haven't really been worrying about being competitive much in the past, I guess maybe 6 months or so. I didn't particularly time it until recently with the Tucker Express race Central Outer Loop / Clockwise weekly race. I was able to get the world record in for one particular car of it. Or a little bit of the one particular car we mentioned in the video. But the main reason I'm making this video, because linked in the description, is a video by Charles, I think that's how that's pronounced, who definitely deserves more followers and stuff. Usually makes videos in other languages, but making video in English, follow his channel to support that he's doing English stuff too. It's probably double the amount of work there, so yeah, definitely there. But the point being is that he's really caught picking fast with a controller. Like, faster than me in probably the vast majority of circumstances. And he's taken some analysis from other people that have really caught picking fast on controller. All of which, again, faster than me in the vast majority of circumstances. And figured out some issues that the controller is having in GT7. As with pretty much any racing game ever, of course the wheel is going to be better in some circumstances, and pretty much on average going to be faster. Some isolated circumstances, controller might be a tiny bit better. The goal of most games theoretically would be to make it pretty much equal between a wheel and controller, but then in GT7, well, this video, again, it's linked in the description, reveals that there's some outlier problems with the controller in GT7. I won't go as much analysis as he has, because, well, he's the one that found it, but I will kind of take what he says into what I know best. As I've said before, in the vast majority of circumstances, I'm sure he and all the people he's got analysis from are definitely faster than me. But, as I said earlier in the video, too, there's Tokyo Expressway Central Outer Loop / Clockwise. And, well, lo and behold, that track, and any iteration from Tokyo Expressway, from how I understand it, is the track that's actually best with a controller. After analysis from all the people that Charles could coordinate with, that are really caught picking fast on a controller, it seems like general consensus. At one point in the video, there is a actual ranking of what tracks are best to work with the controller, and Tokyo Expressway right caught picking up there. Iger Nord one up there, I'm average there. I haven't really ran a whole heck of a heap in GT7, but some other tracks pretty caught picking high up the list. Willow Springs, the Scuba, I'm not very good at pronouncing it. Scuba, the 1.27 mile, the kind of drifty type track. And Suzuka, all of which I'm better at. So, when probably 4 out of my 5 best tracks, lo and behold, I realize are general consensus or best of a controller, that kind of does make me think, doesn't it? And a lot of my worst tracks are the ones that happen to be worse with controller. It's not a perfect circumstance. Like one of the tracks that was shown to be bad with the controller's high-speed ring, and that was actually a track that I was able to be way out of my comfort zone, because, as I've said forever, really, generally speaking, the slower the car, the higher up the ranking board I'm going to be. And, well, of Group 1, it ended up being pretty much a Group C competition, mainly the Nissan. At high-speed ring, I was able to finish 35th in the world and have the fastest time in the entire world of anything that wasn't the Nissan. Both of which are documented on the channel. But one of the other things that was more in-depth and a specific detail mentioned in the video is there are certain types of cars, depending on their downforce level, that react differently as well. Cars with a high downforce level, something like a Le Mans car, tend to do better with a controller, and ones that are lower relative to their speed. A specific example he gave was the Honda 2025 Vision Gran Turismo, whether it's the Group 1 or the Vision Gran Turismo itself, I would assume, for that one. And yeah, I agree. I've driven that car a bit, especially in the high-speed ring weekly race qualifying, and it was crap. It was probably, I think it ended up being like the second worst one that I used, from how I remember. So, yeah, that fit perfectly as well. So the point I'm making is, lo and behold, of all the time I've been driving, is kind of got proven to kind of go how I was thinking. One of the main reasons, but I didn't outright say it, is sort of kind of implied, that I quit trying to be all that competitive is because, to me, it just seemed like I started to not be as competitive. Well, I try and be super competitive when I'm trying for years and years, and suddenly I seem to be doing worse. To some extent, I figured, maybe my controller has a bit of stick drift, it's just not as competitive, or just I'm getting older or whatever, or losing reflexes, whatever it may be, and I ain't saying those ain't true. My controller's old and I'm older, so, yeah. But I think it's the thing with the controller, like mentioned in the video, again, like, in the description. Lo and behold, I think it got, pinpointed at about July 2024, there was an update that made it a lot worse on controller. General instances have been found in the past of controller being worse and whatever car track combination it may be, but specifically in July 2024, what seemed to have happened, and again the general circumstance, is that where PD added something that would theoretically smooth out the movements of a controller, and I think they even actually mentioned that in patch notes, maybe even for that particular update, is they mentioned something in patch notes is controller play will now be smoother, and maybe it is. I couldn't really tell for absolutely sure. I've never been absolute smoothest of the drivers. The way that I've kind of done it is just more muscle memory and just a whole heck of a heap of practice. Generally speaking, if I start any car track combination, I'm going to suck for a while with it. I've discussed that before, so I'm definitely not super smooth, so I'm not really the one to judge on that. But the point being is smooth, in this case, ain't faster. Because what it does is, one, it makes it to where instead of, if you hit, let's say, your accelerations to the R2 button, so if you hit the R2 button down as fast as you can, as hard as you can, so go to 100% throttle as fast as theoretically possible. But there seems to be proof that there's a bit of lag, a bit of delay in terms of it going from no throttle to full throttle, which of course means in certain cars that have enough grip where they can go from no throttle to full throttle, not spin the tires, it's worse. Things like low power or four-wheel drive or things like that. And lo and behold, the things that I'm more talented at are things with low power, four-wheel drive, or stuff like that, so that hurts. But what's pretty much a death blow to controllers is that it was also proven that the total range of steering is a lot worse with a controller to a wheel now. Especially on tracks of banking, such as Blue Moon Bay, which I sort of kind of actually noticed that of the recent weekly race at the Blue Moon Bay Roval type thing. It seems like I could actually take the turns on like the inside of the track, the like Roval part of it, better relative to the leaders of what then I could take it in the banking. Kind of just figured to begin with, I'm rusty, but lo and behold, it seems to happen on whatever car track combination it is, but it's most pronounced on things with banking, where with a wheel, from how I understand it, it's any wheel. It's not particular brand or particular force feedback or particular degrees of motion, like 900 degrees of motion or whatever you want to run on. a wheel has all of the range of motion. Like when you look at the little dot on the top of the heads-up display, the little dot can go all the way left to all the way right. With the controller, it can only go a certain amount, and not anywhere remotely close enough to be super competitive. Like, there's a noticeable gap between all the way left or right to where the controller is. And from what I can tell, that gap is the same for whatever track it may be. Just with that less range of motion matters more for things with banking, or, like I mentioned before, some certain tracks that have more bumps, or some certain cars that have less downforce relative to their speed, things like that. So, yeah, that's kind of a new thing to me. A solution given in the video that can be kind of a temporary thing is to try the motion steering with the controller. I've not tried that before, and I'm not at all promising that would even be remotely faster, but I might give that a try on. I'll probably at some point I'll just outright screenshot that ranking of what tracks are best for controlling worse, and if there's ever a time trial or whatever maybe that I feel like compete more on one of the tracks that are worse with the controller in terms of the joystick type steering, yeah, I might try the motion steering, but I can't give much feedback myself to that because I've not done it. Generally speaking, of what he says makes sense is that in certain circumstances, while it is clunky to use because it was never meant to be the main use in terms of competition, in some circumstances it can be better because it's more precise of movement and it can be kind of used like a pseudo wheel. But I think generally speaking, Polyphony added that more as a novelty than actually meant to be competitive, so it is pretty clunky, and that's why I've never really used it. I think, yeah, technically I've tried it out for like 5 or 10 minutes. Even I might have been back in GT Sport, it was a while ago, just to screw around and see what it do, and I didn't particularly like it, and I never even remotely considered using it competitively, but lo and behold, it might actually end up being advantageous too, I guess. We will see about that. But for now, really about all I can say is that I hope PD fixes that. That was said in his video and others like that too. It's certainly a new realization, ain't it? It doesn't necessarily mean that I'm gonna be super trying to be all that competitive if this ain't gonna be fixed. It's just one of those things where it's certainly some information right yonder. Another thing too, I didn't really figure making an outright video of it because in some ways it's kind of obvious. It just I was late to the party realizing how obvious it is that there's actually a new and better form of website ranking system for all of the GT7 weekly races. DG Edge, I think is what it's called. All I really did for that is just search GT7 daily races, and that was one of, if not the first search. I think it's like DG Edge or something. Like, I linked it back in the world record video too, so go back to that video, and then that's what's linked in the description. And back when I went on the hiatus, I didn't even realize that exists. I was using the old GTS8's rank one. That it's not bad, but it's not as in-depth as the DG Edge one. And the DG Edge has it for every single car available. So let's say it's a Group 3 one. It has rankings for every single Group 3 car, and then subcategories for that, like of country and other miscellaneous ones like that. And that would be the two mainly that I would focus on, is maybe try to get the best in the US and or best for a certain car. Usually I would think it would be Mopar. we'll see on that. Like, especially Group 3 and Group 4, I'd try and do it with the Viper. So, yeah, that's kind of why I came back with the Tokyo Expressway Central one, is because it hadn't had that track in a while. I think it's fairly, yeah, there's one with like a Suzuki Carry, but that took tuning, and I just didn't really feel like spending money and time on that, knowing that I was kind of burnt out on doing that sort of stuff anyway. But it does up my confidence knowing that, yes, Tokyo Expressway is actually one of the tracks better for controller. So no, it's not my driving getting worse. It's just that I've always been worse with front-wheel drive cars. The last two ones that I put major amounts of efforts in with Tokyo Expressway Central are both front-wheel drive. Qualifying for a weekly race, and lo and behold, I've never been as good with front-wheel drive in any video game, especially Gran Turismo, so that's just my style of driving. I mean, that kind of makes sense for like a Mopar, doesn't it? I mean, really, other than the Dodge Neons and the Chrysler PT Cruiser, not so much of driving a front-wheel drive car there with Mopar, so I guess maybe that's a factor, I don't know. But nonetheless, like I said, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to be super competitive, but I feel like it's just good to still make a video. And this to say, to some extent, I'm just relieved that that is a thing, and it's not just completely me. Who knows, it might still be somewhat me as well. Whether it's me as in my controller or myself or both or whatever. Who knows, but it's looking like, generally speaking, it's mainly that PD screwed up. A lot of things seem to be that PD screwed up, but we're supposed to get this big Spec 3 update that supposedly is going to do some stuff to sport mode, so we can only hope they fix this. Hopes versus expectation has been true longer than even the controller sucking Gran Turismo, though, so we'll see, folks. We'll see.